traveling, giving workshops, retreats, intimately involved with Kum Nye. What have you found now as a promise of it?
Well, there's a whole range within Kum Nye. On the first level, it's actually an internal self-healing process that starts. And it's quite simple to explain, because what happens is that when we have a thought, an opinion, especially an emotion, we're kind of internally, we are frozen. You cannot see that maybe, but you know it, because when you're in an emotion, you don't have choices anymore. The reason for that is that internally the energy is on hold. So we have 5, 6, 7 patterns, not many more, of energetic patterns that are basically frozen. And we like to make that flowing again, because all the energies that we embody are by nature flowing. So the emotions actually reflect frozen energy. But even in the daily life, if we are in the past or in the future, that energy freezes too. So Kum Nye melts that tension, so it starts to flow again. So internally you become more whole, because the energy has time to go down and up and go into the senses. So that's the inner process of healing. So that works for everybody. I have never experienced maybe 1 or 2 cases, but everybody who does an hour and a half of Kum Nye feels better in the end, because their energies are more flowing. And we call that activating the flow of feeling. The reason why we call it feeling, because it's a sensory capacity. All experiences have 2 main components, a knowing part and a feeling part. And the feeling part is grossly neglected for us, because we think so fast, and then the feelings can't keep up, and they start to hold, and they start to be suppressed, and they go underground. So this whole world we're bringing back to life. And the ability to feel is a bodily sensation. Like you look with your eyes and you hear with your ears. The ability to feel is a bodily experience. So you experience life through feelings with the body.
What would you say a feeling is? What do you mean by feeling?
Well, the best way that I explain a feeling, because it comes up regularly, people say, oh, they immediately start to mix it with emotions, because some languages, emotions and feelings are the same. And what I do is I ask them kindly, do you want to be a guinea pig? And then they sit in the center, and then I go, my first thing that I do is I go closer, and I say, tell me when I'm entering your space. And some people say, oh, you're already entering my space. And some people don't feel anything, and I can come this close. And that is your kum. So your kum is your sense of space, the sight of your experience. But what takes place within the sight of experience depends on how well your energies flow, number 1, and 2, interact with one another. Like you have here energy, you have here, you have here, you have here, you have here, in the hands. So if these all function independently, you're going to hear different voices, they don't communicate with one another, and you feel confused. So Kum Nye brings the feeling, activates life's energies through the body, starts to circulate it, and they begin to interact and communicate with one another. And the result is you have one voice, and the best part is you have creative options, because it doesn't get stuck anywhere. Like basically if you have an emotion, it's a blocked energy that's talking. So don't deal with the content of your emotion in Kum Nye. Make the energy flowing again. Give it space, give it time, and then it comes to life again. So that's one side, is the inner healing. All the way at the other end of the spectrum is you use Kum Nye for meditation. And these teachings, meditation means integration. So you're integrating body and mind. You're integrating inner and outer experience into one space. Then there's the most beautiful part of integration. And that's the integration of you as you are there, your unique being, with all of life. So that life and your potential begin to reflect one another. That's the third part. So
Is that a feeling?
it's a feeling. So a feeling, when you come into a room, oh yeah, I didn't tell you that other part. So the first part is I go into the kum, and then the second part is I put a hand on their shoulder. I stand behind the person, the guinea pig, and I put a hand on their shoulder. And then they experience something. That's a feeling. Then they start to have a thought. Oh, I like it, or it does me good, or what do you want, or stop. That's an emotion. So the feeling is the bodily experience of your being in this world. It's exactly the same as seeing. You see, you hear, You smell, you taste, and you feel. So when you come into a room, the room has a feeling. When you come into a new city, you have a feeling. What I often do in classes, there are many different nationalities. I let them talk in their mother's tongue. So let's say we speak English in the group, but there's a person from Brazil and she speaks in Portuguese, and a person from Germany speaks German. So then you cannot relate to the words, so you cannot project what you're hearing. Mm-hmm. You actually feel what they say, and there's a communication between their energy talking and you receiving it.
What do you do when someone says, I don't know, I can't feel?
When somebody says, I can't feel, it happens a lot with people who are running around in daily life and who depend on their head and their throat. So we would say they're living in their heads, which we all do, especially when we are tense. You know, this is where we go. The anchor is thoughts. You know, I can make sense of what's happening, mental sense. Mm-hmm. The way that you can tell is if the breath doesn't go below the upper chest, you will not have feelings. Mm-hmm. So you need to get the breath down there. How do you do that? Is by creating inner space here. So you begin to inhale in your belly expands. You exhale, your belly condenses. So that's a way to make room for the energy of the breath to go down there. And we do exercises with the lower body, lying down and the legs up and all those kind of things, just to make room here, and then the feelings start to flow. So it is a matter of inner space. Huh? When you're tense or in your head, there is no inner space. A person who I can come very close with and they don't feel I'm in their inner space, I'm not entering their space, mm-hmm. That means their kum is very, very, very small. It's like that only here. They don't sense that you are close or not. But a person who has a big kum, a big space, and it is said that the Buddha's body is as limitless as space. So that's what you want. If you have great space, you're more at ease, and your creativity is much more because you see options, you see possibilities. So it's very important to have a large kum in Kum Nye, and the way we do that is by stimulating the internal massage of your feelings, of the energies in the body. There's here, there's here, there's here, there's here, and the hands. When that all becomes activated, it starts to circulate, and then it begins to massage you from within. So after a while, a Kum Nye sits still, and there's all this inner world is being active. Your inner environment comes to life, the Kum will expand.
How about I'm fearful of feeling? I start to feel and I get afraid. I don't want to feel. I've really cut off my feelings and I'm just afraid what might pop up.
Yeah, this happens quite often. It is especially with people who were as child very sensitive. Mm-hmm. And then there was too much pressure on them, or too much interaction with them, or too much invasion of their energies. So they start to withdraw and create an island for themselves to feel safe at. So they think now that I need a protection. Mm-hmm. But the holding of that wall is actually what hurts the most. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, you first need to hear that you're much safer in an open space, because then if something comes, it also goes, because it's open. But if I'm having a very tight space, I need to defend to not experience what is happening. So all my energy goes into holding the self or the I or the image that I have of myself. So if I can relax that, I will feel in a normal way. The people who don't feel actually discover, it's my experience, mm-hmm. that feeling is their biggest asset. But because it was so well developed as a child, it became challenged. They had to go to their head for all kinds of reasons. And so when they come back, they will discover that that's actually their most precious quality, is sensitivity, is to feel that everything has feeling. And it's not only people that you interact with, but you interact with the trees, with a gate, with the stones, with a dog, with a cat, with life. So everything starts to have a feeling. Then you are safe. So the way to start is always with the breath, soft breath. So the soft breath makes you feel safe. The breath goes down in the body. And then you do a little exercise, like you just move your shoulders forwards and back, just like this. I'm sure you have done that in your practice. And some people, when they sit still, they start to cry. It doesn't happen much in my seminars that people cry, but they may have a tear or so of the holding of the tension. And they feel that they are coming home. Home is the world of feeling. Simply doing this, they already start to become at ease with that world. It's not a mental progression, it's a body experience.
Does it last?
Yeah, because they become addicted to feeling, because the world of feeling is much more informative than thoughts. It gives you more foundation. The beauty of feeling is, like, you feel a person. If I'm sitting with you and I'm doing Kum Nye, I don't have an opinion about you. I don't like you or dislike you. I'm with you. And there's energy meeting energy, and there's an exchange of that. So I feel safe. So feelings have no duality, no polarity. It's like we join. All the great experiences are feelings. Love is a feeling. Compassion is a feeling. You act on a feeling. Joy is a feeling. Knowing what's important is usually a feeling. And the biggest one of all is understanding. Wisdom is a feeling. There's one more thing that's really important to know about feeling. If you want to embody anything, let's say you hear a teaching in a book, or you do Kum Nye, and we always sit still after the exercises. And why? Well, because the process of Nye is continuing.
What is Nye?
Nye is the internal massage of the experience within. But the reason why we sit still is not only to give that time so that the Kum becomes wider and deeper. The real reason why we sit still is so that you can embody the change. By feeling, you embody. So embodying an experience is not through the head. Oh, I like this. Oh, yeah, I would like to be like that. Won't work. But if I experience something and I want to keep that experience, make that part of who I am, what I care for, I feel. So sitting with you, if I feel, I'm embodying the exchange. Or if I'm looking at stupas, we're in the stupa garden here at Ratnaling. If I look at the stupa and I have a feeling of it, if I feel what I see, if I feel what I hear, I become it. So feeling is the key to embodiment.
And what is this second level? You said this is the beginning level, then there's another level you spoke.
Well, the promise of Kum Nye is, on the one hand, it's self-healing, relaxing the inner environment, awakening the inner environment. The internal energy centers like heart and the throat and the head and the abdominal area start to communicate with one another. And they have their own take on life. They have their own capacities, their own qualities, their own voice. And the other range is, the other end of the spectrum is meditation. But in between, there is the development of feeling. So if you would ask me, to a newcomer, what is Kum Nye? It's basically to bring back feeling into your life. Not emotion, feeling. Just like if you close your eyes the whole day and you go through life like this, and you say open your eyes, you start to see. It's the same with feeling. It's exactly the same. You begin to feel. And we already do it in daily life. I mean, when you come into a car lot, we are men, so we buy cars, so you already feel which car is yours, the one you like, and then you start to articulate why you should have it because of the mileage or the color or the this or that, but you already know which one. It's a feeling. And most of our decisions are actually based on feeling. It's much broader and deeper than intuition. Intuition is more daily life, but feeling is more like all communications that are going on in life anyway, between energies. So the energies of objects like the tree and you and a friend and you and cooking, but it's also between you and space. So all those communications, you begin to embody that.
So do you end up trusting your feelings, or how does that in regard to?
Well, the interesting part about feeling is, number one, is that they are non-dual. There's no subject and object. There's a communication between subjects, you might say. That's one part. But a feeling in Kum Nye has in it the energy to act. So you don't need a separate psychology or a separate behavioral Now I need to do what I just felt. No, the feeling, otherwise it's an emotion or a thought or a resolve. But if you feel, it contains the energy that makes you act in accord with the feeling.
And do you have to study this for years, or how long is this process?
Well, at one point I made a commitment in my life that this is for the rest of my life. And if that's the case, you see that the text and the exercises begin to open. As if you read the first sentence and you do the exercise, now you make a commitment that you want to study it, embody these teachings. It is as if that sentence starts to open up. And now, we have the first Kum Nye book we have for 40 years. I read yesterday something I never saw before. It is almost as it reveals where I am. Mm-hmm. Like I would say in a seminar, well, for example, alertness is introduced in Joy of Being. Page such and such is a big deal. Alertness is important. And then yesterday I discovered it's an exercise 2. The last sentence is alertness. So it's already there. And last year I discovered in the last page of the first book, what's for me the most precious of Rinpoche's teaching is waking up the body of knowledge. It's in the last page of the first book, and it took me 30 years to actually see it, feel it, and work with it, and being able to practice it.
Are you a slow reader?
Yeah, I don't read much, but when I read something that I like, I go very slow, and I read every sentence 3-4 times. I may copy it, and then it starts to open up.
And what has the feedback been from your students?
Well, from a kind of marketing point of view, Kum Nye is still very small. Some people who are nice to us, they say it's the best kept secret. Yeah, it's also because we are not good at marketing, promoting Kum Nye. But the people who are coming, once they stay for 1 or 2 classes or 1 seminar, they are hooked. It's not a nice term, but it works. I can absolutely guarantee for 98% of the people Kum Nye works, young or old. If you go into the posture, you will feel better and your experience opens up and you get confidence because your body is has a home of feeling. That is what gives you confidence. So most people, many people do it once a week and then they just feel better at the end of the evening. And I'm always a little bit sad about that because there's so much more that you can explore. But that's what they want to do. But it is really a path to awakening.
What about older people who aren't as flexible?
Oh, you don't need a flexible body. The physical body is maybe 10% in Kum Nye. You use the physical body to do this. Mm-hmm. But after a while, you work with the experience. So I'm doing this because moving stimulates the experience within. Mm-hmm. So people don't know what the experience within is. So I introduce them in a rather rough manner. And I say, now lie on the floor. That's how I start. Lie on the floor, be still. Feel the weights of your bones going down into the body. And when you're still and you're going down a little bit, you experience that there is a lighter body inside the physical body. Light in the sense of opposite of heavy. Later becomes light as opposed to dark. That lighter body is what does Kum Nye. And people say, I don't know what you're talking about. And I say, I have one more example. That you will get. If you have seen a person who's dying, when the person is not dead, the person is there. Now you go downstairs, have a cup of coffee, you come back, which often happens, and the person has passed on. The person is dead. At that moment, you only see an empty shell. You see a skull. You see an empty shell. You see a body with nothing in it. Something has left the body. Mm-hmm. That whatever has left the body, that's what we do Kum Nye with.
So is that the end result of Kum Nye?
That inner body is light, not only in the sense of not heavy, but is actually light, which is said to be the nature of our being is light.
So do you have classes that are mixed with young people, old people?
Now that depends on the country.
I see.
So I don't know if that changes, but at the moment in South America, if somebody likes Kum Nye, they come with their mother and their uncle and their nephew and their barber. Anybody can come. If we are in Northern Europe, it's more private. They keep it for themselves, and they may not even tell at home what they're doing. Say, oh yeah, I'm going to my yoga class. Well, but if that's needed, it's okay. There's some people, the background where I come from, they would think that we do this because we have a problem. Once you have no more problem, you don't do this anymore. It's not true at all. You come there not because you have a problem. Could be, but you come there because there's something in you that asks for waking up to your potential, or what I would call the promise of life. It's not my term, it's coming from Tibetan Buddhism. What is the promise of life? It is knowing and feeling. Those are the two starting points to develop those. And you can find in Rinpoche's teaching both.
How long are your retreats?
Well, when I started to do Kum Nye, they were 4 months, 6 months. They were 1 month. It was very nice. It was in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s. People could just come for a month retreat. I don't think anybody's able to do that anymore. It seems that way. So the longest retreat I do at the moment is 12 days. And it's true, we can do in 12 days what we used to do in a month. Because when your time condenses, you go deeper faster. And I'm inclined to usually go right away to the edge, to what I'm learning myself, and to bring people to that place, and to bring the result in very quickly. So I'm teaching starting at the result. Maybe that's a little bit quickly said, but you don't need this slow, gradual process of step 1, step 2. You can do that in the morning. In the afternoon, you can go already deeper.
And when the class is over, the retreat's over, how do people continue, or how do you support people continuing their Kum Nye practice?
Well, that's very important. In general, I find that a 10-day retreat, if they were really engaged in it, that it has an effect of about 2 or 3 months. So if the retreat is in August, it may work till Christmas. And then also maybe because of Christmas or the time, it starts to go away. And it goes away because more and more they go to the head. All you need to do is stay in contact with the body. Because if you stay in contact with the body, you will feel. Just like if I stay in contact with my eye, I will see. So body awareness is the basis. If you do that, it will last forever. So, but if they ask me what to do, I say stay in contact with the body. And the second thing is copy your notes. Make your notes, write them out nicely and reorganize them. Then they re-experience it. Sometimes, but that doesn't very often, I encourage them to have a buddy and go over the day 1, session 1, day 2, day 1, session 2, day 1, session 3. So they discuss their notes. That's a very nice way to keep it alive. But of course you need to practice. You know, ideally you practice in the morning 40 minutes and 40 in the evening, ideally. But what we have done now is we have instituted webinars so people can, they don't have to travel. They join us on the computer TV, and we do practices and do some theory. So it continues to go. So there's more an undertone that is being activated. But we do have a program where you can actually practice Kum Nye in daily life without ever mentioning Kum Nye, but using the elements of daily life. And the key of that is having a relationship with time. So your relationship with time in the retreats has a lot to do with space, but in daily life it's time. So once you're connected with time, there's a dynamic which is not much different than feelings in the body. For somebody who is in time, has a lot of feeling in the body. So stay connected to time, and then you can keep Kum Nye in daily life. It's not like you have to watch your breath or keep the tip of the tongue against your palate. That works. But it's your sense of time that is actually the Kum Nye experience.
Could you give me an example?
Yeah. If you are working and you're dwelling, you're thinking of the past or something that happened, or you're anticipating what you should do with a future meeting, you're not experiencing what's going on at that moment. You're not experiencing the body. When you're going into the past or the future, your energy is on hold at that time. If you go into what you're doing, and ideally working with your hands, that's the best way to do it. Or ideally you go into your hands, that's number one ideally, and the second ideally is to have a deadline. If you embrace a deadline, a meaningful deadline, and you said, yes, I go for it, what happens? You go into time. And when you're in time, the past and future are there, but you're not preoccupied with them at all.
It sounds like concentration.
Yeah, but you're linked to time. You link the body and the so yes, concentration, but you link the body with time. So the link is concentration. If they are together, your body is very alive, because that's the energy of time that you feel in the body. Time and life are similar, huh? And Kum Nye is life. So if you activate life, which you can do by being in time, you're doing Kum Nye.
So if I concentrate and really get into time, as I say, where do my feelings come in?
Well, you don't concentrate on something, but it is, if you're trying to do the best you can, huh? Let's say you write or you make a program, and you try to make it not only as fast as possible, but as good as possible, as beautiful as possible. So then all the elements of the experience, good,
sensory.
beautiful. Yeah, if you bring that all, I'm trying to make the best website in the time that I'm giving. Not like, oh, this is good enough, or this will do. Then you're not in time.
Okay.
So you make it as best as you can. It's a balance between quality and time. Not only quality and not only time. When quality and time are together, you're in the Kum Nye experience. And that's why it's very nice to have a group of people that you work with, a team, and you together embrace the deadline. Now everybody's energy is joining. And then you really feel that the whole is much more than the sum of its parts. That experience is a Kum Nye experience.
Would you say that also Kum Nye is better to be done in a group?
My experience is that there are a few people who are very good. They do it every day when they come from work, or in the morning when they wake up. They do it every day, but it's much better with a group, provided everybody's doing it. I mean, if some people are spacing out or checking their text messages, then we have to work harder to work on that energy. But if everybody has the intention to do the practice, yeah, the impact is multiple.
Do you also give one-day workshops?
Yeah. Yes, 1 day or 3 hours. You can do a lot in 3 hours. So Tartan Tulku Rinpoche has written 3 Kum Nye books. And the first book, if you would sum it up, yes, it's Awakening the Body of Knowledge, but that's true for all of them. Body of knowledge means your inner knowing, waking up your inner knowingness, we call it sometimes. But the result of the first Kum Nye book is aliveness. We call it wholeness, but that's a problem in some countries, because the second book is feeling complete within. Nothing is missing. That's the experience of the second book, The Joy of Being. So, but in some countries, completeness and wholeness is the same word. So the result of the first book is wholeness. Everything is alive. The body energies, the senses, the mind, everything is 100% alive. That's the first book. And the second book, The Joy of Being, is to feel complete within. Second book is beautiful. It shows 10 ways how we fall away from feeling complete within and how to come back. And the third book is totally different. There we start at the result. Okay, let's say there's wholeness and completeness. What is the manifestation of that? Even if you don't feel like that, what is the manifestation of that? So you express guided by little nuggets of wisdom, pearls of wisdom. Like, for example, one of the most beautiful sentences that I think on the third book is, we have, or you say, I have what I need, and I am what I seek. So that's the third book. And then there's about 75 of such sentences. So you manifest the accomplishment of all your practice. If you did all your work and your full human being is activated, however you call it, the promise of your life is here. How would that show? And that's the third book. So by taking on those characters, you see there's no distance between you and this result. So you feel in a moment when you sit down, you're still, you're alert, you're ready, and you're in a state of openness to knowingness. There's no more what Rinpoche would call in other books regime of mind. The first book used to be called Kum Nye Relaxation, and we turned it into Kum Nye Tibetan Yoga, so people know what it is. The second book is The Joy of Being, and the third is Kum Nye Dancing, introducing mind to the treasures the body offers. Thank you very much.